With the filming of the Harry Potter reboot series already underway, and they're doing season 1 and season 2 back to back, 6 episodes each, with the promise that later seasons will be more episodes because there's more content to cover. Today we're going to be going over Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Let's get started with episode 1. Episode 1 of the Order of the Phoenix season is a lot. It is a lot. This is going to be a packed episode. To be able to make the story work in later episodes, staying within 8 episodes and not going to like 10 or 12, or God forbid if we do 6, I don't know what's going to happen, but 8 episodes. We're doing 8 episodes, so that's what it's going to be. The first episode is 9 chapters, and that's big. 9 chapters of a 38 chapter book. That is a fourth of the story in one episode. But there's a reason for it, because from chapter 1 to chapter 9 is in itself a full, complete story. Yeah, we could split it up into 2 episodes and make a 9-episode season, but I'm trying to consolidate everything as much as possible. It may be a longer episode, but by no means. HBO, if you want to make 1.5 to 2 hour episodes, you've done it before with Game of Thrones. I'm okay with longer episodes. Make this episode long. If you have to reach a certain episode length and that's all you have to do, cool. Here you go. 1 episode, 2 hours long. Just basically a movie. I will sit down and watch it. So like I said, 9 chapters. We start with chapter 1, Dudley Demented. Chapter 2, A Peck of Owls. Chapter 3, The Advanced Guard. Chapter 4, number 12, Grimmauld Place. Chapter 5, Order of the Phoenix. Chapter 6, The Noble and Most Ancient House of Black. Chapter 7, The Ministry of Magic. Chapter 8, The Hearing. And finally, Chapter 9, The Woes of Mrs. Weasley. Yes, that is a lot of chapters to cover, but the story that it covers is an episode of information. So you get the story of Harry using magic to protect him and Dudley from Dementors, but also you get the whole story of the introduction of the Order of the Phoenix, which is the important part of the series. Is you have the Order of the Phoenix, the beginning of the war. You have Harry who feels like he's left out. He's using magic. He finds out Mrs. Fig is part of the Order, which if you paid attention in the season finale of Season 4, you would have heard Mrs. Fig and been like, wait, I know her. She's the babysitter. Then you get the Ministry. You get newspaper clippings talking about how Harry is crazy. And then you get the Ministry sending, you're suspended from Hogwarts. Aurors will be at your door to break your wand and expel you from Hogwarts. Then it's like, hey, no, they're not going to do that. They can't legally do that. Stay where you are. Do not leave. Don't do what you did in the 3rd book, because instead of Sirius Black, who wasn't actually going to murder you, it's Voldemort, who will murder you. Then you have the Order coming to pick him up, take him to Grimmauld Place. You get the introduction to Grimmauld Place. That's just the first third of the episode. Then you have the third of the episode, which is Harry exploring Grimmauld Place, finding out what's been happening, that, hey, the Daily Prophet's been trashing you, not just Dumbledore, but trashing you, and is covering up that Voldemort is alive. We find out that Voldemort's after something within the Ministry of Magic. We don't get to find out what it is, but we think it might be a weapon. Then we get to go to the Ministry of Magic to have the hearing where Harry is then acquitted of all charges, and then we have the party at the end. We then also get the whole interaction of Moody pulling out the picture of the original Order, thinking it'll help Harry, but then seeing his parents and being like, oh, this is what happened. And then him going upstairs, seeing a drawing room because he hears crying. He opens up the door and he sees Ron dead on the floor, cut to black. I think that would build a cliffhanger for the episode to at least have, hey, look, we have this happy ending, and then we see Ron. For people who've never seen the movies or read the books, that's a big deal. You walk in and you see Ron dead on the floor, and you're like, what just happened? Why is Ron dead? Well, it's not actually Ron, it's a boggart, because we were told it was a boggart, but it would be a side conversation, not front and center. It would just be like, oh yeah, it's a boggart. I'll take care of it if you want. No, I'll do it on my way to bed, just in the background. So we hear that, but that's it. We also find out that Hermione and Ron are prefects, so you have that little storyline within there, but it's not front and center. We don't need that to be front and center, because we want to feel like Harry isolated. Like all these things are going on, but we're stuck with Harry. We don't get to interact with anybody, just Harry. And I think that'll make it better. Make the whole episode feel claustrophobic. Like feel like Harry, where he's just closed in and feels small and just unappreciated, unnoticed, and just that, he's going through trauma. He still feels like there's nothing that he can do. He wants to do something, but what can he do? And that's episode 1. I think that is episode 1. Yeah, it's 9 chapters long, but what are you going to do? That's the whole story. You get Harry expelled from Hogwarts, not expelled from Hogwarts, picked up by the Order, because the Order storyline is within the middle of Harry using magic outside of school, being expelled, and then the hearing and being acquitted of all charges. So you have that at the beginning and the end. If you wanted to split it in 2 parts, you could, but that adds an extra episode. So 1 episode, 9 chapters, hour and a half to 2 hours long, half an hour for each part of it, whatever, but it works. Especially as a like season opening after the previous season where it's like, oh crap, Voldemort's return, the war has begun again. It was darn near impossible to break this down into 8 episodes. I got it, but it's hard, especially now that they've announced that their first 2 seasons will be 6 episodes each. The thought of trying to cut this down to 6 episodes would really just make it just back to the idea of the movies. Like, hey, let's make this movie. Granted, I have always said that the 5th book is only as long as it is because so much of it happens within Harry's mind. Look at this. This is the paperback book. Look how thick that is. It's stupid long. And his inner monologue, just in general, is most of the book because it's him feeling as an outcast. I always joke about within the series, every book, there's a point where Harry feels like an outcast. You know, in the first book, it's after he gets that detention and loses Gryffindor so many points, he feels like an outcast. Everybody kind of treats him as an outcast. In the second book, it's when he is the heir of Slytherin, he kind of feels like an outcast. In the third book, it's when everybody gets to go to Hogsmeade and he's stuck at the castle by himself because he may get murdered. In the 4th book, it's when he is the 4th champion. The 5th book itself is just Harry is the outcast. That's the whole book. It's the outcast of the series. Like, Harry is the hero of the entire series, except for the 5th book where he is an outcast the entire book, which fits the pattern of the series. The series as a whole is just an extended version of the pieces of the book. But breaking this up into 8 episodes was difficult to say the least. And the first part of the book is really the hardest part. You would think the end of the book would be really hard, but it was easy. I try to break every episode up to where it has a standalone story so that if you were to just watch it, whatever questions were brought up at the beginning of the episode would be answered at the end. There would be other questions that would get brought up as the story as a whole, but the episode would be a whole plot of the storyline with a resolution at the end, so you feel satisfied at the end, but still ready to see the next episode next week. If you like these theoretical breakdowns of the Harry Potter series, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're looking forward to more Harry Potter news with the HBO series, because I will be putting out more videos as information comes out, I'll put out reactions once the episodes finally come out in 2027. I'll be breaking down each episode, talking about Easter eggs, trying to find behind the scenes. So make sure to like and subscribe for all of that future content. Now let's get into episode 2. Episode 2 is not as long, but there's a lot being introduced. We pick up where we left off with Harry opening the door to the drawing room and it being Ron dead on the floor. Then we pan over at that point, see Molly Weasley pointing her wand, and then she says, ridiculous. And then it turns into Fred and George. And then we realize what it is. Because we know ridiculous. So if you weren't paying attention in the middle of the first episode, you didn't get those clues. So you just walk in, you see dead Ron, and you're like, what, dead Ron? Then you get the final clues that it's a boggart. Molly Weasley's greatest fear is her children dying, because that is her main tentpole. She's a mom. She cares. We also see dead Harry. So the chapters that we're covering here, 5 chapters. We're going to cover chapter 10, Luna Lovegood, chapter 11, The Sorting Hat's New Song, Chapter 12, Professor Umbridge, Chapter 13, Detention with Dolores, and Chapter 14, Percy and Padfoot. Then we get to go to Hogwarts. We get to meet Luna Lovegood on the train. We get the Thestrals. And then we get introduced to Dolores Umbridge. We saw her in the first episode, but we didn't recognize that as important. She kind of sat in the shadows behind Cornelius Fudge and just sat there. Didn't really do much, but now we get her in her full glory. Dolores Jane Umbridge, Senior Undersecretary to the Minister of Magic, is now the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher of Hogwarts. We, of course, have the Sorting Hat scene with the song and Harry going, oh, he doesn't sing the same song every year? And it's like, yeah, Harry, he doesn't sing the same song every year. And he goes, I'm sorry. I've only been to like one of these last year. I don't get to this a lot. Usually I'm in trouble before school even starts. We then have his first class. We see him acclimating back to school, being an outcast. He speaks up to Dolores within his class, gets detention, and gets yelled at by Angelina Johnson, McGonagall for, causing scenes. We then also see Ron being weird, but that's not a big deal. We do find out later in the episode it's because he's trying out for Quidditch. And of course, Harry sends a letter to Sirius going, this lady's nuts. I think she's evil. And Sirius going, no, she's not evil, but also getting information from Percy, finding out that Percy is fully on board with the Ministry Kool-Aid and wants Ron to join. Congratulations, Ronald, for becoming a prefect. It seems that you are no longer taking the Fred and George route. I would mind you to really get in good graces with Dolores Umbridge. She is a wonderful person. Rip. But we get a little bit of hint. Like, this one is one of those episodes that kind of just fills in, but there's not really... Like, it was this or put it into the next episode, which would have given that too much. So this just kind of introduces everything. You do have a little bit of like, hey, look, it's the first week of school. School kind of sucks. It's like the Empire Strikes Back of episodes where it's just, you know, there's no good things happen, but the story itself is kind of over. You have the detention. He finishes his detention and we find out there's something more going on with the Ministry and Hogwarts. Episode 3 picks up where episode 2 leaves off. Literally the next morning, they're sitting at the table, they read the Daily Prophet and find out the news that Percy wanted to share was that Dolores Umbridge is no longer just the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, or even just the senior undersecretary or the Minister of Magic. She is now the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry's High Inquisitor. This episode is only going to be 4 chapters, but there's a lot in these 4 chapters to cover. That's why it's only 4 chapters. The chapters are Chapter 15, the High Inquisitor, Chapter 16, the Hogshead, Chapter 17, Educational Decree number 24, and Chapter 18, Dumbledore's Army. So, of course, this whole episode is the founding of Dumbledore's Army. We still have Defense Against the Dark Arts is not teaching us anything. Everybody's worried about OWLs. At the beginning of the episode, Hermione kind of throws in the idea of, you know, you could teach us. And Harry goes, no, I'm not going to teach anybody. What do I know? I don't know how to do anything. I got through all this stuff the past 4 years with sheer luck or help from other people. And Hermione's like, no, you faced Voldemort your first year by yourself. You faced Voldemort in the Chamber of Secrets in your second year by yourself. 3rd year, yeah, you got help from me with the Time Turner. I'll give you that. 4th year, you did the maze by yourself and fought Voldemort in the graveyard by yourself and came back by yourself, well, with a dead body, but you came back by yourself. None of us have been able to do that. Most people can't face Voldemort once and survive, let alone you facing him 4 times in your life and surviving all 4 times. None of us can do that. You have some sort of special skill. And hopefully in this series, in the first season, Harry will actually use some magic, unlike he did in the Sorcerer's Stone movie. But we have the whole idea. Let's start Dumbledore's Army. Let's meet up. Oh crap, we can't just meet up now because all groups are banned. Well, let's find a secret place. Let's have our meeting. And that's it. It ends with them having a good first meeting and being able to start a secret Defense Against the Dark Arts group under the nose of the Hogwarts High Inquisitor. It's a perfect episode. You get the fun of Harry sneaking around, the mystery of trying to find, and of course, you get the wonderful Dobby, because Dobby's gonna be... I used to hate Dobby, but Dobby's fun. But that's it. That's episode 3. Quick and easy. Good episode, maybe a little bit shorter than the first episode for sure, but it will have everything that you want. Setting up the story, we have Dumbledore's Army now. What is going to happen? We then get into Chapter 4. It's starting to become winter now. We get our first Quidditch game of the season in Chapter 19, The Lion and the Serpent, and that's really just what it is. It starts out with a Quidditch game. Ron's first Quidditch game. Weasley is our king. We finally get to Weasley is our king. But the Quidditch match may end in victory, but it then soon turns to sorrow, as Harry, Fred, and George are now banned from Quidditch for life by our wonderful High Inquisitor, Dolores Jane Umbridge. But there is a bright side to that day. Hagrid is back, and we get a flashback. We get a whole section of flashback, which is Hagrid going to the Giants. I thought about making this a whole episode because the journey itself would be a lot, but like I said, we need a whole story. So of course, we have to show that the High Inquisitor has more power than we thought she did. She's getting more power every episode, more and more power. First, she was just the shadow behind Fudge. The second episode, she's not just the shadow behind Fudge, she's the hand of Fudge within Hogwarts. The third episode, she's not just the hand. She's the one controlling Hogwarts now as much as she can. Then the next episode, Lion and the Serpent, she now can dish out punishments and bypass the power of other professors. So each episode, she gets more and more strength. And that's what this shows. So we get Chapter 20, Hagrid's Tale, which just is a flashback to what happened to Hagrid. Where has he been the past 4 episodes? Then we get into the big event of the episode. 3 chapters, the whole latter half of the episode, which is Chapter 21, The Eyes of the Snake. Chapter 22, St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries. And Chapter 23, Christmas on the Closed Ward. So this whole story is the snake attacking Mr. Weasley being in the hospital, and then them coming to visit Mr. Weasley once again in the hospital on Christmas Day, where we not only meet Mr. Weasley again, but we meet Gilderoy Lockhart. He is back, the wonderful Gilderoy Lockhart, who seems to still not have his memory, but no, and he's someone famous. He didn't learn joined up writing just for the fun of it. Come over here and get some signatures, kids. I probably taught you everything you knew. But we also end the episode meeting the Longbottoms, which we knew about the Longbottoms from the 4th season, because we have the trial scene where we find out that Barty Crouch Jr., Bellatrix Lestrange, Rodolphus Lestrange, and his brother, Rabastin, tortured Frank and Alice Longbottom to try to get information out of them until they went crazy. Why they tortured them, we don't actually know. We will find out eventually, but all we know is they tortured them to find information on where Voldemort is. Why the Longbottoms? Not sure, but they did torture the Longbottoms. And we get the moment where everybody's like, I didn't know. And Harry goes, I knew. I found out last year, but Dumbledore promised me not to tell. It wasn't my story to tell. And so I didn't say anything. And this little scene really sets up for the latter half of the season, because this is episode 4. We are at the end of the first 4 episodes. We are halfway through the year, and the latter half of the year is Neville's growth. The rest of the season isn't about Harry. It is about Harry, but it's also about Neville's growth. I think they are planning on making Neville be a more major character for the payoff at the end of the series. They tried to do it a little bit in the movies, but they were kind of constrained because they didn't know exactly where it was going to end before the books ended. So by the end, yeah, Neville had bigger parts, but I mean, I think in the series, Neville is going to be a bigger main character energy going on. Episode 5 is a very action-packed episode. We get another 5-chapter series with chapter 24, Occlumency. Chapter 25, The Beetle at Bay. Chapter 26, Seen and Unforeseen. Chapter 27, The Centaur and the Sneak. And Chapter 28, Snape's Worst Memory. So this, once again, Dolores Umbridge does get more power. She does not get it until the end of the episode, but her power continues to grow. This episode is more focused on Harry and Snape's relationship, as well as Neville growing. So you have the occlumency lessons. You also have within that the story of the Death Eaters escaping Azkaban, which then shows the growth of Neville. So at the beginning of the episode, you have Death Eaters escape, people questioning about what is going on with the Ministry. Because these people were like, Voldemort's not back. But then all of a sudden, Death Eaters are escaping. And of course, the Ministry is blaming it on Sirius Black. But what's weird is when Sirius Black escaped, they had an all hands on deck to try to catch him. But these Death Eaters escape, and the Dementors don't seem to be all around trying to stop them. Weird. But we have occlumency, which Harry is horrible at. We have this continuous dream that we've had throughout the series of the long hallway leading to a door that just doesn't seem to open. But in that, we get to see Rita Skeeter again. And she does an interview with Harry where Harry basically tells Rita, this is what happened. Yeah, it's going to go in the Quibbler, but I think it's going to be big. And Luna goes, yeah, we'll release it as soon as we do. And once it's released, a lot of people start to question more what's going on with the Ministry. And of course, the Quibbler gets banned, but that makes Hermione happy that more information is going to be out. We also get the downfall of Dumbledore's army. Harry's pursuit of Cho Chang throughout this series has culminated in him going on a date that epically flops in the beginning of this episode, and then her best friend decides to release the information, whether willingly or unwillingly, to Dolores Umbridge on Dumbledore's army, which then effectively makes Dumbledore oust himself as, it's not Potter's army, it's Dumbledore's army. Minister, I am the one who put them together to take you down. Would you like me to go quietly? Hey, that's not going to happen. And that's it. Dumbledore escapes. Guess what? Dolores Umbridge is now headmistress of Hogwarts. She gets her final upgrade. She is now fully powerful. She's got her inquisitorial squad running around, causing mayhem. Montague gets stuck in a cabinet, very important cabinet. We've seen it before, but we don't remember where. We then end with Snape's worst memory, another flashback in the episode where we find out that, was James Potter actually a good person, or was he kind of an a-hole? Of course, from Snape's point of view, he was kind of an a-hole. But do we have the full context of that story? I don't know. We may never know, at least for another 2 seasons. But as of right now, James, bit of an a-hole. And Harry kind of second guesses his hero as he's being chased out of Snape's office, and that's where the episode will end. We are almost up the hill to the penultimate episode, but this is episode 6. Episode 6 is basically Hogwarts under Dolores Umbridge, and it's almost like watching that series where it's like, hey, look, things are happy, something bad happens, and then it's the world after the apocalypse. That's what this is. It's basically just Fred and George causing mayhem the entire time. It's only 4 chapters, but it's 4 chapters packed with all sorts of shenanigans. So it's chapter 29, Career Advice, chapter 30, Grop, chapter 31, OWLs, and chapter 32, Out of the Fire. So this whole series is, at the beginning of the episode, Harry finds a way to get into Dolores' office so she can communicate with Sirius. She then He then talks to Lupin and tries to get some information without telling him what happened, as well as saying, yeah, I'm not doing occlumency anymore. And Lupin goes, what? You need to be doing your occlumency. And Sirius goes, don't make me come back there. And he's like, no, I'll talk to him. Then we have another moment of McGonagall standing up for Harry. One of the few times that she does in the series. In this season, she'll stand up for him multiple times and understandably support him, but not in the way that Harry needs. We then get to see the OWLs. We saw it in a brief flashback in the previous episode, but now we get to see it for Harry. We get to see him smugly make a Patronus right in front of Dolores Umbridge. But then during his history of magic exam, he falls asleep, has a dream of Sirius being tortured. So of course, then he concocts a plan to find out if Sirius is safe, meeting up with Kreacher and Kreacher telling him he's gone. He's gone forever. I can finally be with Mistress Black. Then he gets pulled out of the fire by Dolores Umbridge, and that's the end of the episode. We end with him being caught by Dolores Umbridge and the Inquisitorius squad. All things are lost. What are we going to do? Sirius is in trouble. We, as viewers, are hooked because the trio is also in trouble. How are they going to get themselves out of this? We are now to the penultimate episode, episode 7. This is only going to be 3 chapters, but it is 3 big chapters. Chapter 33, Fight and Flight. Chapter 34, The Department of Mysteries. And Chapter 35, Beyond the Veil. So this is the episode that I think most people will be looking forward to when they get to season 5. We pick up where we left off with Harry being pulled out of the fire, facing Dolores Umbridge and the Inquisitorial squad, who have all of his friends held with arms behind their backs, and Harry about to be tortured, Hermione coming quickly up with a plan, because in the last episode, of course, we were introduced to Grop, and we kind of get this idea that Hermione is leading Umbridge to Grop, but they don't seem to be going the right way. And Harry kind of brings that up, like, are you sure this is the right way? And Hermione goes, oh yes, it's the right way. We know where we're going. We do this all the time. Then the Centaurs show up. We kind of get introduced to the Centaurs the last episode as well, and find out that they are very angry. They're not happy with humans at all, especially with Firenze. So we get the whole thing where they end up getting away, being safe, because Grop comes to save them. Hermie, we're Haggard. Cool. They fly Thestrals to the Ministry of Magic, and we finally get to see what we've been waiting for. The Department of Mysteries in full glory, not just the Hall of Prophecies or the Veil, but we get to see the Brain Room, the Space Room, the door that doesn't seem to open. We get to see it all. I always thought if this episode was going to be an episode, it would end when Harry picks up the prophecy and you just hear a voice in the background saying, give me the prophecy, Potter. Because that's how the chapter ends. The Department of Mysteries chapter ends with Lucius Malfoy saying, give me the prophecy, Potter. And it says, in a drawing voice says this, and it's supposed to be the way that it's described throughout the books is things, voices and handwriting are described certain ways. Dumbledore's is always a long scribe. The Malfoys are always described as a drawing voice. So it makes sense. You see a drawing voice, it's like, is that Malfoy? I don't know who that is. That Lucius? Draco? How did Draco get here? But I think it's good for the middle of the episode. And then you have the battle. And when you think all is lost, when they're running around the Department of Mysteries, all of a sudden the Order of the Phoenix shows up. We're not going to do that weird black cloud, like floaty fly around apparition. What the hell was that in the movie? We'll do actual, like, no apparition fighting. That was weird. It was cool, but it was weird. We'll actually have just true dueling. And then we have the point where Sirius dies and we see him fall through the veil, and then the devastation on Harry's face. And that's where we'll end the episode, is just the devastation on Harry's face as Sirius falls through the veil and Lupin grabbing him. Like, that slow-mo moment in the movie is perfect. That would be the way I would end it, is just, you know, the devastation of Harry losing a father figure, kind of. Sirius isn't a great father figure, but it's a father figure to Harry. Lupin tackling him to the ground to make sure that he doesn't go into the veil, and that's how the episode ends. Episode 8, the final episode, is not going to be as exciting as the previous episode. It will be exciting, but it'll also be very expiatory, because this is where we find out everything. Almost everything. So we ended the last episode with Harry being tackled to the ground after watching Sirius fall through the veil. Now Harry gets up and is chasing Bellatrix, which is very similar to Order of the Phoenix movie. Those scenes are pretty well shot. But what we get is Dumbledore and Voldemort battling it out epically. We also get the statue of Magical Brethren joining in on the fight to protect not only Harry, but Dumbledore. We get Fawkes swallowing a killing curse. We get all sorts of things going on in the Ministry, and it's just pure chaos. We also then get the scene where Dumbledore has to watch Harry be possessed by Voldemort, and Harry, just with being sad about Sirius's death, defeating Voldemort in that way for that moment of, you know, Voldemort can't handle love, which is the secret to occlumency. At least hiding things from Voldemort is love, which is a little clue for the rest of the series. Then we get sent back to Dumbledore's office where we find out about the prophecy, but not only that Harry is the chosen one, but that Neville Longbottom could have also been the chosen one. And we find out that Dumbledore has been trying to protect Harry by keeping him in the dark. But in turn, it caused more problems in the fact that if he had told Harry about what was going on, Harry probably would have not done what he did. Sirius probably wouldn't have died because Sirius wouldn't have had to go to the Ministry to save Harry. Dumbledore blames himself for what has happened, but in the end, he says, we'll get this figured out. We will win. That's why the last episode is only 3 chapters, because there's so much information packed within this. But, you know, we lose at the end of this, as we lost at the end of the last one. But the last one, we thought we had a chance. This one, it's like, we may not have a chance. But the silver lining of this dark cloud is that the Ministry is now on the right side. Like I said, it's 3 chapters. You have chapter 36, the only one he ever feared, chapter 37, the prophecy, and chapter 38, the Second War begins. Because yes, the Second War began at the end of the last book, but this is when the Ministry is actually on board. It's not just a secret, covert, undercover, anti-government task force that Dumbledore is running in the shadows. It is now the entire wizarding world against Voldemort and the Death Eaters. But the problem is, because the Ministry was so far behind, Dumbledore has amassed the power to go against the Ministry. And that's what the next season is going to be about. The Ministry versus the Death Eaters. Who's going to come out on top? Who's going to win? That's for the next episode. So if you watch my stuff and subscribe, you've probably seen the last episode that I posted last week for the 6 misconceptions of Goblet of Fire. I have a hat. This is the only hat, one of a kind, but it was just an idea. I wanted to see what merch would look like for me if I were to sell it. It is a flex fit embroidered hat with my logo on it. If you're interested in it, let me know, because if you guys want to buy merch, I will sell merch. I will get merch made. If you want to rep my logos, I'd appreciate it. That's cool. But at no point am I trying to make a business of selling merch. But if you're interested in it, if not, I got a hat. I'm happy with my hat. One of a kind. But if you're interested, let me know in the comments. And if you like these deep dives, make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, stay marvelous. Knox.